Now that we've got our maxillary cast mounted, we're ready to get set up to do the mandibular cast. We need to remove all of the bite fork or the facebow assembly by removing our facebow transfer assembly, remove our posterior bite fork support, and we remove our facebow bracket. We need to reattach our mandibular magnetic mounting plate, which just screws on to the same position as the bracket did. All of our other settings should be the same. Our anterior guide pin should be set at 0. It should still be in the center of our anterior guide plate. Make sure that is set at 0. I'm going to reattach my maxillary cast. It'll snap into place. Again, be kind of gentle with this. You don't want to accidentally break it off of our mounting before we get a chance to add more mounting stones so it adheres better. If we get a chance to look at how we're lined up, where our center line is in the center. Our maxillary cast is mounted parallel with the floor. It's in the middle of our mounting plate, and our occlusal plane looks to be appropriate. So I think this looks to be a fairly accurate mount. To mount the mandibular cast, we turn our articulator on its end. So we flip it upside down, and then we're going to move the mandibular aspect up and down like this in order to close and to mount the mandibular cast. We use the maxillary cast as the positioner to put the mandibular cast onto. Again, we have our indexing notches on the mandibular cast that we're going to put a little smear of Vaseline inside of it so that our stone does not adhere incredibly well, but that if we need to, it can separate out of there easily. But the Vaseline just goes inside of the notches, nowhere else on the cast. And you just need a small smear, not very much Vaseline in there. So I place a little Vaseline and then I rub most of it out. Take most of it out with my finger or with a paper towel. Now we mounted our maxillary cast on the articulator using a face bow. In order to mount our mandibular cast, we use the maxillary cast to position the mandibular cast in the correct position. We need to make sure we put a mounting plate onto our magnetic mounting plate, and it'll snap into place because it has those indexing notches on the mounting plate itself. In this case, I'm just using the occlusion of the two teeth to position, and if the patient has enough teeth, this is a great way to do it. You may also want to use some records. You may use a centric relation record, you may use a centric occlusion record. I'm checking here to make sure I have enough space between my articulator mounting plate and the stone. And it looks like there's enough room there, and my stone is not interfering with closing the articulator. If you find you can't close the articulator or it's hitting the stone, you may need to trim your stone more. It may not be positioned correctly if you're having trouble getting it to close all the way. So you see here, even though we're in occlusion, the cast has the tendency to rock and to move a little bit. It's at a little bit of an angle, which means if we put forces in certain areas, it can rock or move. So I'm actually going to adhere my mandibular cast to my maxillary cast using some sticks that I'm going to attach to the side of the cast. And I'll show you how to do that now. There's different methods you can use to adhere your cast together. In this case, I'm going to remove the whole mounting plate and the cast off the articulator. And I'm not going to remove the magnet off of the plate. I'm just going to leave it all separated. That way I just have to screw the whole assembly back on when I'm ready to mount. I have these little Q-tips we can get from the dispensary. Break the Q-tip part off. I'm going to do 4 of them. I think 3 is the minimum you want to use, but I like to do 4 because I feel like they attach a little bit better and it holds the cast together better. Position the cast in the correct occlusal position that I like. Make sure the sticks that I'm using aren't going to interfere and they're going to be the right length. I can trim down more if I need to. I'm going to place 4 of them around the casts. There's 2 ways you can do this. You can use something called sticky, well, there's more than 2 ways, but you can use sticky wax, which is this wax here. It's orange. It's incredibly sticky, and it's often used to help adhere stone casts together. I'm going to start my Bunsen burner, light the pilot light. And this is the switch that allows you to turn the flame on and off. You can turn the gas up, and when I push this down, it pushes more gas out. It allows you to put your hand on the trigger and melt wax or put wax on an instrument or heat an instrument if you'd like to. So the 2 ways I'm going to show you how to do this using sticky wax and also using a hot glue gun is another method that can be used. In order to get the sticky wax to stick to the cast, they need to be really dry. If there's moisture in the cast, the sticky wax will not adhere very well and it will break off, and sometimes that can be frustrating. But the casts, if they're dried casts, the sticky wax should stick fairly well. Put the sticky wax in and out of the flame to allow it to heat up slowly. So I want the whole of the wax to be melted, and not just the surface to be really melted. So I put it in and out of the flame, slowly causing it to heat up. When it's warm enough, I take the sticky wax and place a little section of wax where I'd like to adhere the Q-tip stick. Put it on the maxillary and the mandibular, and take my Q-tip stick and place it into that sticky wax. After which I go back and place a coating on top of the stick to help adhere it really well, so it doesn't accidentally cool and break free. This may require a learning curve in order to figure out how much to melt the wax, how to use it, how much you need. So we'll go ahead and put a second one on this side using sticky wax. Another method that can be used to adhere the cast together is using a hot glue gun, which is basically the same principle. Instead of using sticky wax, it has a soft plastic material that's heated up through the tip of the gun. Again, the casts need to be very dry in order for this to adhere well. If it has moisture on it, it will not adhere well and will end up coming off. So we'll go ahead and pretty much the same principles what we use the sticky wax with. Place a little daub of hot glue in the area we'd like to stick the stick on both the maxillary and mandibular. Place it into the hot glue before it cools, and then place a layer of hot glue on top of it. And when I do this, I kind of make sure I get a fairly large surface area of hot glue and spread it out, so that the more surface area, the better it'll adhere to the cast. Now you can put too much glue or too much wax, so you put enough to get it to adhere. And that's kind of what it looks like with the hot glue. Now this mandibular and maxillary casts are stuck together in the CO position, the centric occlusion position. On these typodont casts, the occlusion is not like it would be on a normal patient. They usually fit together much closer on a normal patient. So now that these are all adhered together, now we need to treat this very carefully, and we're going to reattach the articulator. I want to make sure my pin is still at 0. I double and triple check these all the time to make sure my pin is at 0 because I need to be at 0. I removed it with the magnetic plate already attached, so I'm just going to screw the magnetic plate back on. And that's the reason why I do it with the magnetic plate on, is because I don't want the force of the magnets connecting to cause my two casts to dislodge. Check to make sure I have enough room again for my stone. And this is ready to mount. Make sure we have our mounting plate, Vaseline our indexing notches, and we'll go ahead and get this mounted.